Hello, family and friends, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Shauna, and happy terrific Tuesday to you. Today is April 1st, so look at us. We made it to April 1st. Thank you, Lord. All right, my friends. Well, let's do a quick review, but let's say our prayers first. Lord, thank you for this time together. Thank you for every single soul who can hear my voice. Please give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to gain some insight and inspiration from your text. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, friends, quick review of yesterday. Yesterday in Judges, we started at chapter 3, the last verse in chapter 3, verse 31. And it was where we met where'd I put it? My notes here. Shamgar, the third judge of Israel. So we met the third judge yesterday, and Shamgar delivered the Israelites from oppression of the Philistines. One of the only things we know about Shamgar is that he killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad to save Israel. So the third judge, Shamgar, his mighty contribution to the nation of Israel was he killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. So of course, inquiring minds had to know, what is an ox goad? I never heard of that. An ox goad is a wooden tool with a pointed iron spike. It's used to spur the oxen. So there you have it. So if you have an ox goad sitting around, save it in case you have an intruder. Sounds like a vicious weapon. All right, moving on. We also read chapter 4. So my dubious notes for chapter 4, we met Deborah and Barak. They go to war with the Canaanites. So after Ehud had died, the people of Israel started the cycle of sin again, worshiping idols. So God allowed Jabin, the king of Canaan, to subjugate them for 20 years. So they got 20 years of torture for that disobedience. Then God heard their cry and felt sorry for them yet again. And so Deborah, Israel's fourth judge, called a man named Barak to her and told her to gather his army and go fight. And so Barak said, "I'll go if you come with me." And so she agreed to go with him, but let him know that he would not receive the glory for the victory. The glory would be a woman. And so Deborah's our first female judge, the first female. So I was thinking maybe it's going to be her, but we continued to read and we found out that it wasn't. Which leads us to the murder of Sisera. So Sisera was the commander of that Jabin army. And remember, he jumped off his horse and left his men while they were fighting and went and hid. So he fled and hid into the tent, but mistakenly, sad for him, he went into the wrong tent, the tent of Jael, and she was an ally with the Israelites. So while Mr. Sisera was sleeping, she stabbed him in the head with a tent. What's it called? A tent peg. Oh, she hammered his head out. Ooh, that is vicious. At the hands of a woman, no less. Woo! Okay, so that was chapter 4. Chapter 5 chapter 5 was the song of Deborah and Barak. So basically, chapter 5 was a long song of victory. So, which is funny because I was thinking about all the hymns that I've heard in church over the years, but I've never heard this song, the song of Deborah, and I'm sure for good reason. I don't know. It's not the typical sweet song. But one thing to know that they did have a call out going on here. So for the bravery, specifically, she specifically mentioned the tribes that helped out in the war for being brave. But also she rebuked the tribes that did not participate. And so I thought that was funny, a little call out, namely Reuben and part of Manasseh and Dan and Asher. She called them out because they didn't help. So anyway, after the battle, they had rest for 40 years after the defeat of Jabin. So that was chapter 5. And then chapter 6 went as follows according to me in my little overview. Midian was oppressing Israel. So the Midianites were stealing the livestock and the crops, and they oppressed Israel for 7 years. And then the fifth judge, Gideon, came on the scene. So we met Gideon yesterday as well. And what was pretty funny about Gideon is the signs that he requested, because the angel of the Lord came to him, but he didn't believe it. He didn't think he was worthy enough to command an army and battle anybody. So God gave him 3 separate signs, and the funniest one to me was the sign of the wool. You know, if the wool was wet but the ground is dry, and then if the ground is dry but the wool is wet, then I'll believe you. I thought that was kind of funny. All right, so that's what happened yesterday. Let's move ahead to today. Today's chronological read, we're going to read chapters 7 through 9. All right, in our chronological Bible, let's go. Gideon's 300 men. Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the spring of Harod. And the camp of Midian was north of them by the hill of Morah in the valley. The Lord said to Gideon, "The people with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel boast over me, saying, 'My own hand had saved me.' Now therefore proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, 'Whoever is fearful and trembling, let him return home and hurry away from Mount Gilead.' Then 22,000 of the people returned, and 10,000 remained. And the Lord said to Gideon, 'The people are still too many. Take them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. And any one of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, shall go with you. And any one of whom I say to you, this one shall not go with you, shall not go.' So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, 'Everyone who laps the water with his tongue, as a dog laps, you shall set by himself. Likewise, everyone who kneels down to drink.' And the number of those who lapped, putting their hands to their mouths, was 300 men. But all the rest of the people knelt down to drink water. And the Lord said to Gideon, 'With the 300 men who lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hand. And let all the others go, every man to his home.'" 8. So the people took provisions in their hand and their trumpets, and he sent all the rest of Israel, every man to his tent, but remained the 300 men, and the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. 9. That same night the Lord said to him, "Arise, go down against the camp, for I have given it into your hand. But if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah your servant, and you shall hear what they say, and afterwards your hand shall be strengthened to go down against the camp." Then he went down with Purah his servant to the outposts of the armed men who were in the camp. 12. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the people of the east lay along the valley like locusts in abundance, and their camels were without number, as the sand that is on the seashore in abundance. When Gideon came, behold, a man was telling a dream to his comrade, and he said, "Behold, I dreamed a dream, and behold, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian and came to the tent and struck it, so that it fell, and turned it upside down, so that the tent lay flat." And his comrade answered, This is no other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp." 15. As soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, he worshipped, and he returned to the camp of Israel and said, "Arise, for the Lord has given the host of Midian into your hand." And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies and put trumpets into the hands of all of them, and empty jars with torches inside the jars. And he said to them, "Look at me and do likewise. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then blow the trumpets also on every side of all the camp, and shout for the Lord and for Gideon." All right, so that was 15 through 18. Let's keep going. Gideon defeats Midian, verse 19. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, when they had just set the watch. And they blew the trumpets and smashed the jars that were in their hands. Then the 3 companies blew the trumpets, and broke the jars. They held in their left hand the torches, and in their right hands the trumpets to blow. And they cried out, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." 21, every man stood in his place around the camp, and all the army ran. They cried out and fled. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his comrade and against all the army. And the army fled as far as Beth Shittah toward Zerah, as far as the border of Abel Meholah by Tabith. And the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali and from Asher and from all Manasseh, and they pursued after Midian. 24, Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against the Midianites and capture the waters against them as far as Beth Barah and also the Jordan." So all the men of Ephraim were called out, and they captured the waters as far as Beth Barah and also the Jordan. And they captured the two princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeb they killed at the winepress of Zeb. Then they pursued Midian, and they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon across the Jordan. They brought the heads back with them. Like, "Hey, y'all, here's proof. We did that." Ooh, child. Let's just keep going. I'll do a good summary tomorrow. Let's just get the reading out the way today. Judges 8. Gideon defeats Zebah and Zalmunna. Verse 1. Then the men of Ephraim said to him, "What is this that you have done to us, not to call us when you went to fight against Midian?" And they accused him fiercely. And he said to them, "What have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the grape harvest of Abiezer? God has given into your hands the prince of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. What have I been able to do in comparison with you?" Then their anger against him subsided when he said this. 4. And Gideon came to the Jordan and crossed over, he and the 300 men who were with him, exhausted yet pursuing. So he said to the men of Succoth, "Please give us loaves of bread to the people who follow me, for they are exhausted, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zebulunah, the king of Midian." And the officials of Succoth said, "Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, that we should give bread to your army?" So Gideon said, "Well then, when the Lord has given Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will flail your flesh with the thorn of the wilderness and with briars." 8. And from there he went up to Peniel and spoke to them in the same way. And the men of Peniel answered him as the man of Succoth had answered him. And he said to the men of Peniel, "When I come again in peace, I will break down this tower." So he's asking for support, and they're like, "No, we're not helping you. That's your business. You're not getting our bread for your army." Verse 10. Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkar with their army, about 15,000 men, all who were left of all the army of the people of the east, for there had fallen 120,000 men who drew the sword. And Gideon went up by the way of the tent dwellers east of Nobah and Jogbehah and attacked the army, for the army felt secure. And Zebah and Zalmunna fled, and he pursued them and captured the two kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and he threw all the army into a panic. So the same two kings that wouldn't help, he captured them along with Midian. 13. Then Gideon, the son of Joash, returned from the battle by the ascent of Ares, as he captured a young man of Succoth and questioned him. And he wrote down for him the officials and elders of Succoth, 77 men. And he came to the men of Succoth and said, "Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you taunted me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, that we should give bread to your men who are exhausted?" And he took the elders of the city, and he took thorns of the wilderness and briars, and with them taught the men of Succah a lesson, and he broke down the tower of Peniel and killed the men of the city. They should have just helped them, huh? 18. Then he said to Zebah and Zalmunna, where are the men whom you killed at Tabor? They answered, as you are, so were they. Every one of them resembled the son of a king. And he said, they were my brothers, the sons of my mother. And the Lord lives, if you had saved them alive, I would not kill you. So he said to Jethar, the firstborn, rise and kill me. But the young man did not draw his sword, for he was afraid, because he was still a young man. Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, raise yourself and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. And Gideon arose and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, and he took the crescent ornaments that were on the necks of their camels, Gideon's ephod. Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, rule over us, and you and your son and your grandson also, for you have saved us from the hand of Midian. Gideon said to them, I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. And Gideon said to them, let me make a request of you. Every one of you give me the earring from his spoil, for they had golden earrings because they were Ishmaelites. 25. And they answered, we will willingly give them. And they spread a cloak, and every man threw in it the earrings of his spoil. And the weight of the golden earrings that he had requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, beside the crescent ornaments and the pendants and the purple garments worn by the kings of Midian, and besides the collars that were around the necks of their camels. And Gideon made an ephod of it and put it in his city in Orpha, and all Israel whored after it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and to his family. So Midian was subdued before the people of Israel, and they raised their heads no more, and the land had rest for 40 years in the days of Gideon. Okay, so Gideon conquered Midian, and they had 40 years of peace. I do want to dig deeper into that ephod. So he made an ephod of it and put it in his city, but it became a thorn to him and his family. So people probably just kept coming trying to steal it or something. But we'll talk about that more tomorrow, because I want to remind myself what the ephod was. Because remember when Moses was describing the priestly garments, ephod or ephod was a part of those. So I want to go back and remind myself what that is, because of course I don't remember. All right, the death of Gideon, verse 29. Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and lived in his own house. Now Gideon had 70 sons. Wow. His own offspring, for he had many wives. And his concubine, who was in Shechem, also bore him a son, and he called his name Abimelech. And Gideon, the son of Joash, died in a good old age and was buried in the tomb of Joash, his father, at Orpha of the Abiezrites. 33. As soon as Gideon died, the people of Israel turned again and whored after the Baals and made Baal-berith their god. And the people of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hand of all their enemies on every side. And they did not show steadfast love to the family of Jerubbaal, that's Gideon, in return for all the good that he had done to Israel. Wow, we'll review that again tomorrow, but we'll just keep on reading. But of course, it's the cycle of sin that we've already, was introduced to. Actually, I can't even say introduced to in Judges, because it's really been going on since they left the promised land, so anyway, yep, long history of this cycle of sin. Remember, they was complaining, moaning and groaning to Moses, and even Moses' own sister and their brother Aaron. It was just a lot. But now this is even worse, because they're and not just moaning and groaning, they literally are worshiping other gods and just totally forgetting God. So, all right, last chapter, chapter 3. chapter 3 is going to just take us down to 21. So we're not finishing chapter 3. The chronological read stops us at verse 21. So here we go. Judges 9. I don't know why I said 3. Judges 9. Now Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, went to Shechem to his mother's relatives and said to them and to the whole clan of his mother's family, say in the ears of all the leaders of Shechem, which is better for you, that all 70 of the sons of Jerubbaal rule over you, or that one rule over you? Remember also that I am your bone and your flesh. And his mother's relatives spoke all these words on behalf in the ears of all the leaders of Shechem, and their hearts inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, he is our brother. And they gave him 70 pieces of silver out of the house of Baal-berith, with which Abimelech hired worthless and reckless fellows who followed him. And he went to his father's house at Orpah and killed his brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal, 70 men on one stone. But Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, for he hid himself. And all the leaders of Shechem came together, and all Beth Millo, and they went and made Abimelech king by the oak of the pillar at Shechem. Shechem, wow, where's the loyalty? No family loyalty there. Killing your over 70 brothers, man, that's cold. All right, we'll review that tomorrow. 7. When it was told to Jotham, he went and stood on top of Mount Gerizim and cried aloud and said to them, listen to me, you leaders of Shechem, that God may listen to you. The trees once went out to anoint a king over them, and they said to the olive tree, reign over us. But the olive tree said to them, shall I leave my abundance, by which God and men are honored, and go hold sway over the trees? And the tree said to the fig tree, you come and reign over us. But the fig tree said to them, shall I leave my sweetness and my good fruit and go hold sway over the trees? And the tree said to the vine, you come and reign over us. But the vine said to them, shall I leave my wine that cheers God and men and go hold sway over the trees? Then all the trees said to the bramble, you come and reign over us. And the bramble said to the trees, if in good faith you are anointing me king over you, then come and take refuge in my shade. But if not, let fire come out to the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. 16. Now therefore, if you've acted in good faith and integrity when you made Abimelech king, and if you have dealt well with Jerubbaal and his house, and have done to him as his deeds deserve, for my father fought for you and risked his life and delivered you from the hand of Midian. And you have risen up against my father's house this day and have killed his sons, 70 men on one stone, and have made Abimelech, the son of his female servant, king over the leaders of Shechem, because he is your relative. If you have acted in good faith and integrity with Jerubbaal and with his house this day, then rejoice in Abimelech and let him also rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech and devour the leaders of Shechem and Beth Milo, and let fire come out from the leaders of Shechem and from Beth Milo and devour Abimelech. And Jotham ran away and fled and went to Beer and lived there because of Abimelech, his brother. Ooh, I'm not even going to begin to unpack that, because I definitely got to go back and do a little research, because I do not understand that. I understand that there's some betrayal and some brothers killed 70 brothers to make Abimelech king, but I want to, learn a little more about that. So I'll talk about that in the review for tomorrow. All right, my friends, well, let's make this one a quick one. The last few readings have been pretty long. I don't have any Facebook shout outs. I didn't see any this morning. So just go and have a great rest of your terrific Tuesday. After all, it's April 1st. No April Fool's jokes today. All right. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. Bye.